Hello, my name is Zeleny. Welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna talk about my August reading wrap up and my September TBR list. I am currently cooking dinner, so I'm a little bit hot. The kitchen tends to get hot and I turned off the AC for this video so that you could hear me a bit better. I'm making, if you've never tried it, the Trader Joe's masala simmer sauce. And I'm doing with tofu tonight. Sometimes I do it with different vegetables. And then I made basmati rice to go along with it. It's so good. It's one of my favorite meals. All right, on to the August wrap up. It is currently the middle of September. This video is very delayed, but I am a full-time teacher and back to school happened. So I got a bit frazzled at the beginning of the school year. That is why this is so late. I have my Goodreads in front of me right now. My phone just died and I'm too lazy to plug it in. So let's talk about what I read in August. Okay, so one of the first books I read in August, which I think I also mentioned in my July wrap up because I finished it, or I started it the last day of July and finished it the first day of August, was Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. I loved this book. I thought it was so fun. I loved the character development. I really loved the writing style, and overall I had a good time reading this. I've obviously devoured it in 48 hours, so I think that speaks volumes. I know it was a very popular book, so if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend it, especially if you like thriller books. I kind of struggle classifying this as a thriller because it is, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it all the way. It falls in a weird in-between category for me, but just go with it, and I think you should read it if you thought about it at all. I had a lot of fun reading this book. The next book that I read in August was Daisy Jones and the Sick by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I am super late to the party with this book, but it was so fun. I love her interview style of writing. She did the same thing with The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and it was just a good time. The way that she writes these stories, you really feel like the characters are real. Like, you really invest in them. You really invest in the band and everything that happened to them. And it's just great. I really loved it. So again, if you have read anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid and you haven't read Daisy Jones by the Six, 10 out of 10 would recommend it. The next book I read was the second book in the STEMinist series by Ali Hazelwood. It's called Stuck With You, and it was so cute. This book, it's about a woman who is working at a like a green architectural design company, and there's another architecture firm in the building, and it's not so green, and it ends up taking a lot of their clients, but she ends up like falling in love with turns out to be one of the partners of that firm. And it's a really cute story. I love the STEMinist series. I don't think it was in August. Oh, it was in August. Later in August, I read the third book, but we'll get to that. The next book I read was Bloom. You would have seen this in a reading vlog I did in August in the beginning of the month. It's by Kevin Panetta, and it's super cute, and there was a little backstory about that, about how I discovered the book, and when I first heard about it a few years ago, and then I saw it at the library, picked it up, and I really enjoyed it. It's about a boy named Aristotle, and he's gay, and he's just struggling with like his family's expectations to like help out with their family bakery, and that's not really what he wants to do. And then he meets a really sweet boy and who ends up working at the bakery, and it's just feel good. You know what I mean? It's just a feel good story. It's a graphic novel. It was a quick read, but I loved it. And then I was in Maine and I read Yerba Buena by Lacour, and that was another a gay romance, which I loved. It was a bit heavier than Bloom was. I mean, Bloom is a YA novel, and I don't think that Yerba Buena is classified as YA, but it was really good. I really liked the parallel timelines following these two women's lives growing up in their different childhoods, and how the herb Yerba Buena brought them together, or it didn't necessarily bring them together, it did in some ways, but it also was influential in both of their lives in different ways, and I loved that storyline. So I definitely recommend it. It was not too long. I did finish it in a few days while we were on our trip to Maine. You would have seen me reading it if you watched my Maine vlogs. But yeah, overall it was really good. I really liked it. The next book I read was for book club, and it was Devon and Kris Plan a Wedding by Chencia Higgins. So I had never heard of this book before, but another gay romance, and I love this one. It made me feel so good. I listened to it on audiobook, highly recommend, with all the accents, and you really get a feel for the characters and how they come across in their voices. So I really recommend listening to the audiobook version of it. But it felt so good listening to it. Honestly, I liked that there weren't like too many turning points in the relationship where it was like, oh, a big struggle for them that they had to move past. It was just like a normal life, and I really liked that. So kudos to you. Then I was dog sitting after Maine, and they had a bunch of book of the month books, so I read Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. And again, another feel-good book. I was just really in the mood for feel-good books because I know I'm gonna get into thrillers and spooky books for fall. So I wanted to finish out the summer with just like sweet romances. This is a YA romance about a girl whose father divorced, or her parents got divorced. She like kind of lost faith in love. She gave away all her romance books, met like a witchy lady when she was doing that, and borrowed a book called Instructions for Dancing that led her to this dance studio where she met a boy, and they started becoming dance partners and then fell in love, and she regained her faith in love, and it was very cute. So again, I feel like I recommend the book. I generally like don't not recommend books. Like it would take a lot. Like I would have to like fully DNF a book to like not recommend it, but I don't generally DNF books. Alright, so I've got 2 more books for the month. The next one is the 3rd book in the STEMinist series by Ali Hazelwood, and it is called Below Zero. It's about the 3rd friend in that group who works for NASA, and she ends up in Svalbard, Iceland? I think that's in Iceland. Oh god, no, I don't think it's in Iceland. I don't know, but she ends up in Svalbard, which is the northmost town, and for research purposes, and it's about her research and then her falling in love with another NASA person who she hated in college, but then loved later on. Anyway, again, another great one. I love this mix of like science that Ali Hazelwood kind of has going on with her books. So not only the STEMinist series, but her new book, which is Love on the Brain. I just read that. It was my book of the month for August, and it was such a good choice. Or was it September? I can't remember. It was either August or maybe September, and I devoured it. So good. I'll talk about it next month. Anyway, and then what was her other one? The Love Hypothesis. That was also a great one. So if you like women in STEM, just read Ali Hazelwood. I don't know what to tell you. It's great. It's great. The last book I read this month was The Summer I Turned Pretty. I had to read it before I watched the short season on, what was it on? Amazon Prime. I really liked the book. It really brought me back to like high school and going on beach vacation, falling in love, falling into lust or having a crush on like the cute boy next door or the other boy in our condo, which was my case 90% of the time when I would go on vacation to Florida, and just like all the summer love feels, you know? Oh, it was so good, and I really liked the series. I liked the changes that they made, considering that they just filmed it in like more modern times. The book came out early 2000s, I want to say. I'm not positive on what year it came out, but like they didn't have like cell phones, and I just think that the show really did well, like fitting it to modern day without straying too far from the book. And I really like who they got to play each character. It really worked well for me. So 10 out of 10 recommend. So how many books is that? Let's see. So I read 9 books in August. Pretty proud of that. That's not bad for the last month of summer, considering there was a lot to do. And now we are into September, and here is my September TBR. So I've got a stack here, and then I've got a couple of books on my audio. Yes. So I've got some books that are pleasure reading and some books that are for book clubs. So the first book I'm going to start with is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. And this book I'm reading for our staff development, which I lead at my school. And so far I'm really liking it. This coming Wednesday is the first week that we're discussing the book since I handed it out at our last staff meeting. And it is about black child. Actually, I think it's about her life, and it's a collection of poetry that is that goes through her life. So it starts out with her childhood into adolescence, into adulthood, and so on about being a brown girl in America, and I'm liking it so far. The next book I want to read is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I started this book, oh god, in like May. I might need to go back and restart it. I'm not very far. I'm like maybe on chapter 2 or 3. But I think it would be a good book for the upcoming spooky season since it's kind of otherworldly with the different realms and fairies and goblins. No, fairies and all that. So that is on my list. The next book I need to finish reading is Pay It Forward by Kathrine Ryan Hyde. I'm reading this to discuss with my students. I lead the 6th/7th grade novel study group, and this is the first book that we are going to read for fall. So I need to finish reading this so I can write questions for them so that we can start this book. We'll start it the last week in September. So it is about, the whole like pay it forward idea. If you've ever done it, like where you go through Starbucks and you pay for the person behind you and then they pay for the person behind them, and it just kind of continues on in a chain until some grouchy person decides not to pay. But that's okay, we still do it anyway. I almost always do it when I go through the Starbucks drive-thru. It just makes me feel good. I honestly have no idea if anyone does it behind me, but I always like to think maybe somebody does. Excuse me. So the next book I want to read is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This has been with me since the spring. I think it was my March 2022 book of the month, but I didn't read it because I wanted to save it for the fall because it's just like Lucy Foley's books just give me like dark, spooky vibes, and I just really love that in the fall. So this is going to be a fall read for me, and I think it's the perfect one to like kind of kick off September spooky season because it's like not too spooky. I do want to do not a reread. I've never read Dracula. I would really like to read Dracula in October. So that's gonna be on my October TBR, a little spoiler for you. And this book, I don't have the dust cover on right now, but it is The Bodyguard by Cathrine Center. I am almost done with it. Literally. I think I'm about 40 pages away from the end. So I'm really liking this so far. It's just an easy read. Again, I did start it in August. I have no idea what month this was. Let's see. Here's the cover. It was my July book of the month. And I did start it in August, but I didn't finish it. So I think it was on my August TBR. I just wanted to finish it before diving into my more spooky books for this month. The next book on my TBR is Shadow of Night by Deborah Harkness. I read the first book, A Discovery of Witches, earlier in September. I will talk about it next month or at the end of this month. And I really loved it, so I'm listening to the audiobook. I'm about halfway through it right now. And it's definitely getting me in the mood for fall. I love it. Someone said, who was I watching? Shoot, I wish I could remember what YouTuber recommended this. I think, oh God. I'm gonna figure that out and I'll put it right here, who it was. And I'll link that video down below. And it is really like an adult Twilight book, like witches, vampires, demons, and they're thick books and they're really good. So if you want the feels of Twilight, kind of, but for adults, you gotta read A Discovery of Witches. The next book is Shadow of Night, and I think there's a third one. I don't think there's a fourth. I think it's just 3. Yes, definitely recommend that. It is getting me in the mood. And listening, I think it was like 24 hours. I listen on 1.5 speed, which is not that fast, but I mean, my commute's 40 minutes and I just listen when I'm like cooking and cleaning the house, and I'm like halfway through the book already, the second book, with having listened to it for the last couple of days. So it's not so bad. So that concludes my August wrap up and September TBR. Let me know what books you intend to read down below, and feel free to follow me on Goodreads. I always leave it linked in the description below if you are interested in knowing what books I'm reading, or my progress, or my reviews. My reviews never have spoilers in them. I just don't tend to go into that much detail, but if you want to know what I rate a book, that's where you would find it. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye!